Howdy folks and welcome back to the channel, welcome back to another tutorial episode of Gary Grigsby's War in the East 2. We are slowly deepening our know-how on the basic aspects of the game. And the topic of these will be to discuss about, let's say, the map information button, which is related to the second half of the second tutorial video that I made about the Windows hex pop-up, and we will see how to combine the information found in the map info tab and the hex window pop-up. Very briefly though, I wanted to mention the other two buttons of the second row, the admin and the info screens. The admin gives you the option to play around with the settings, the preferences. You can save the game, you can have a look at the hotkey list, or you can just also, let's say, quit and go back to the main menu. But before going on, one thing that I forgot in the previous tutorial is that you see that every button does have a letter, and if you leave the mouse over the button, you see this combination in brackets, which means that if you press, let's say, in this case, Shift S, I can quickly show you to you, you see that it opens you the save game file. So you have at least two options to access every button here in these two bars. The admin, as I said, allows you to change the preferences. The information screens. Each of these buttons, namely, let's say these ones, and ideally even this one, we would say, yeah, let's say all of these until this big star will lead to a new screen that will give you tons of information. I may not discuss all of them in details. I will do for sure a tutorial on the production screen, on the logistics phase maybe, on the commander's report, and of course one on the victory screen. You also have these three buttons. That one is the Wikipedia, which shows all the information about all the units present in the game. You have the events, that is basically this window here. It's useful to keep track of, let's say, partisans activity and so on and so forth. And then you have the show turn summary, which I will discuss in details in a separate tutorial video. But now let's go to the hot topic of this tutorial, which is the map information screen. And as the name says, the map information gives you a list of options that allow you to visualize, let's say, a specific information on the global level, on the overall map. While with the hex pop-up window we can have a look at the specific hex, with these buttons we can have a look at the entire map, and we can grasp information based on which of these buttons we are actually selecting. Starting from the one on the far left, we have the toggle units on map. So with T, basically if you press it, you you hide all the units, and if you repress it, you will see that the units are appearing again. Then we have the zoom buttons, zoom in and zoom out, quite, let's say, intuitive. Then you have one of my favorite ones, which is the toggle enemy hexes. Basically, the hexes that are occupied by the enemy will look like this color, let's say reddish, will have this extra layer of red. It's quite, for me, it's quite good to see where is the actual front line and if I have made any potential pocket. The other interesting button next to it is the toggle for fortification levels. Basically, there are 4 levels of fortification ranging from 1 to 5, and say if we look exactly, I think this is better. We see here that all of these hexes do have a level 2 fortification indicated by this number here. It's quite good in case you want to, say, to analyze the enemy front line and you want to see any weak spot through which make a potential breakthrough. The other one next to it is the railway mode. I will never stress this enough. This is, I think, one of the most important buttons, because it's quite crucial in terms of the logistics, and of course logistics is the beating heart of this game. And when pressing the R button, we see that there are now highlighted all of the hexes containing a railway, and there are basically, let's say, 4 colors, of which 3 can be visible. Hopefully you're not colorblind, so you can see all 3 of them. But we have green circles with the railway symbol inside. This means that the railway is repaired and connected to the national let's say to the national network, railway network. Then we have these yellow colors, which indicates that the railway is repaired, but is not yet connected to the national railway. I would say network. Here it's kind of an exception because we have a port, and this counts as being connected because it is connected by via C. And you see here this red, which indicates that the railway is not connected and is currently broken. We may do have, let's say, a unit down here. Where is that? Where is the? Oh yeah, the FBD 4. And if we move this railway repair unit and we click, I clicked on the RRC. No worries, I will make a tutorial on the graphic user interface of the units. This RRC indicates the railway repair capacity, and now this hex, the circle in this hex turned from red into orange, which means that the railway has been repaired in this turn, and during the next logistics phase it will become green. Next we have the toggle combat delay. You see that now in these 2 hexes there are these 2 numbers, 1 and 3, and this indicates, let's say, the penalty in movement points that units marching through these hexes have to pay. Why? Because in these 2 hexes there have been some, let's say, some long battles. Let's assume, because this is a weekly turn. Here the battle lasted 1 day, and here it lasted 3 days. Now, if I have to move the, let's say, 290th Infantry Division across this hex, well, basically I have to pay 1 extra point in movement points if I want to go through this hex, because this simulates the fact that for 1 day the entire hex was busy with a land battle, and because of this, every unit, let's say, marching behind the one that fought the battle will have to wait for 1 extra day. So this is kind of the let's say the meaning behind the combat delay. And then we have 2 buttons here called the command efficiency and the command quality. Now, the command efficiency follows a principle that is very similar to the good old Hearts of Iron 3. Not sure how many of you played that game, but in HOI 3 you had the famous chain of command. You had theater, army groups, armies, army corps, and of course divisions. And the same is true for Gary Grigsby's War in the East too. And the let's say color surrounding the unit counters tells you how well these units are, let's say, fitted in the command hierarchy. This bright green means that let's say this division is attached to an army corps. This green here means that this army corps is attached to an army, and this means that the 18th Army is attached to the Army Group North. You see that there are units surrounded by a, let's say, darker green color, and this means that these units are skipping or missing one level of the hierarchy. In this case, the 291st Infantry Division is directly attached to the 18th Army. If you right click here and you see a higher HQ, 18th Army, let's say we put it in the 26th Corps, and now it's changed to the brighter green. And as a, let's say, rule for now, you want to have divisions attached to let's say, army corps and army corps attached to armies. Never attach divisions to armies or army groups. Why this? Well, again, I will explain it to you in a future tutorial. And then we have the command quality. Now, it took me a while to understand this, but now I have the explanation. The command quality reflects the skills of every Army Corps and Army commanding officer. And I know that in the 56th Motorized Corps I have von Manstein, which is one of the best general available in the game, and this is why all of the units here are surrounded by this flashy fluorescent green. Meanwhile, if I click on the 41st Motorized Army Corps, which is led by Georg Hans Reinhardt, who is, let's say, less competent than Manstein. You see that now the units here are surrounded by a darker green. Meanwhile, every other commander who is not, let's say, that great will have its units surrounded by this yellow or even orange color. I will come back to this when I will talk about more about the leader skills, so keep this information for granted. We do have the toggle isolated units on and off. This basically will surround any unit that is isolated, so surrounded and cut off from any supply lines by a red square. We do have the supply priority. This is one aspect of the logistics, but basically units do have 4 levels of supply priority, which are of course level from 4, 2, 3, 1, and I think even 0. Yeah, it's 5, sorry, from 0 to 4. And of course, the higher the supply priority, the brighter this green will be. So all of the units belonging to the 4th Panzer Group do have the supply priority at level 4, while, let's say, for instance, the units belonging to the 18th Army do have the supply priority level 3. Now, one of the most, I think, important, let's remove the units for a moment. One of the most important, if not the most important, map button is the toggle logistics information on or off. You may want to get used to play with this on, because you see here these symbols, this star, this locomotive, and this anchor. This anchor is a port, this locomotive is a depot, and this star is a so-called production center. You see here these numbers, these indicate the priority, and again I will talk more into details when I will talk about the logistics. But yeah, you may want to play around with this map very often, because where you place your depots and whether your depots are connected to the national railway line, railway network, this will really dictate the difference between victory and defeat. And with this map mode on, we can go back to the famous let's say, hex pop-up window, because you see that now we have more information. Specifically, we have information about the so-called depot. We know that there is a rail yard level 1, which has 2,000 trucks, and does have a freight of 4520. Then we see some additional information. We see that this depot did not receive anything because this is the first turn. There is no logistics on the first turn. It has 4520, let's say, tons of freight stored, which correspond to the total capacity. So which corresponds, sorry, to the 45% of the total capacity. It has sent out 479 tons of freight. And yeah, you see the total capacity, and the unit track use 0 because no unit has sent in any truck to pick up freight and bring it back to the unit. The other equally important, let's say, map mode is the factory location. This is more part of the production part. But still, it can be important in visualizing the so-called rail yards, which are one of the key points of the logistics. In this mode, you will also see all of the other factories present on the map. There are rail yards. We can see them here, like armament factories, ports, the manpower factories, which is kind of weird because they don't assemble men. This kind of represents the manpower pool that this hex is generating. You have heavy industries, fuel, synthetic fuel, vehicles, and so on and so forth. The next button is very interesting to me because it shows you the historical capture date of every single city present on the map, and that was, of course, occupied by either the Germans or the Soviets, like in the case of Königsberg. Then you have the road map. Again, very interesting, especially in having an idea on which axis does have a physical road, because if you want to move units across hexes with roads, they will suffer less attrition, and there is a lower chance of losing elements for moving that division across a known, let's say, roaded hex. You have the weather, I wouldn't call it map mode, but the weather conditions on the ground, in the air, or none. I would leave it as it is. If you select ground only, you don't see anything because now it's summer. If you select the air, you see that here it's raining over the Baltic Sea, and if you select none, of course, you see nothing basically. Victory locations. This button actually is interesting because it's different between, let's say, the small scenarios and the campaign mode. In this scenario, or in any small scenario, this button will trigger these flags, which have two colors. The blue flags are the targets that the Axis player needs to capture in order to increase the final victory score, while vice versa, the red flags are the objectives that the Soviet player needs to hold in order to increase its victory points. Okay, then we have the interdiction levels. These highlight, let's say, these symbols on the map, either these planes or these stars, or these, let's say, German cross. This is indicates the level of air interdiction present over any hex. Of course, let's say the German cross indicates the Axis interdiction, the red star, the Soviet interdiction. And if you hover the mouse on top of any of these, you see that says air interdiction, Axis 3, Soviet 7. If the value is above or equal to 10, you see that you will also have this symbol here of the plane and the number 1. Now, the last 4 buttons are mostly related to the manual kind of manual control of the air directives, but also, let's say, maybe the first one is more indicated during the ground movement phase. This first button highlights the combat recon. I did launch some recon missions in the air planning phase, and this now it's highlighted here. We see that like in this hex we have a 33 points of air recon for the Axis, while in this one we only have 14. Basically, the higher the recon levels are, and the easier it will be for our boys on the ground to fight and win the battle, because it means that we have more information, we know more, and we can, yeah, obviously fight better. These numbers here, honestly, I have no idea of what do they mean. And again, if you know, please let me know in the comment section here below. Then we have the strategic recon that highlights all of the enemy hexes in which the player performed a strategic recon mission. Like I did one here, and you see this window, production turns since last photo 1, and we see manpower 3 and Rayliard 1. While here we just see manpower 1, but it doesn't tell us turns since last photo. It can be quite useful if you want to, let's say, get information about enemy supply depots. Then we have the all targets or active targets only. This can be quite useful if you want to get an overview of all of the objectives set by your air directives. And here you see the recons, the ground attacks, and other ground attacks against enemy airfields. And then you have the flag option, the flag. You can toggle the city flag only or the entire flag, so the flag provided by the ground units, because maybe they have some AA regiments, AA battalions, I don't know, companies or whatever. And you see that in the flag map mode there are 2 numbers inside these half circles. The numbers indicate the flag intensity, and they can range between 0 and 9. And the number on the left indicates the flag that can hit at medium-low altitude, so below 20,000 feet, while the one on the right indicates the flag that can hit at high altitude, so above 20,000 feet. And last but not least, we have the show air operational air groups, so the button that by default is activated during the air planning phase and is deactivated during the ground movement phase. Well, which suggestion should I give you? Well, you will learn more about this while playing the small scenarios, but in my opinion the most important map info buttons that you should always play with are the logistics and the factory location on off. If you know a bit about the game, I think you understand why you may want to play with these let's say map info buttons. If you're still new to the game, well, I will come back to these two when I will talk about the logistics. That's all for this episode, guys. Thank you very much for watching, thank you very much for supporting the channel, and stay tuned until the next tutorial.